I'm Thom Hartmann in Washington, D.C., and here's what's coming up tonight on The Big Picture. Donald Trump's so-called tax reform plan is the exact opposite of draining the swamp. I'll explain why in tonight's Lone Liberal Rumble with Charles Sauer and Derek Hawley in just a moment. And have we made sustainability illegal? I'll ask filmmaker Lila Connors when she joins us to talk about her new documentary later on in the program. Donald Trump is never going to change. Even Republicans are starting to realize this. But are they actually going to do something about it? Or are they willing to accept an infinite amount of craziness just to give the oligarchs they serve another tax cut? Let's rumble. With me for tonight's Rumble are Charles Sauer, economist and president of the Market Institute, and Derek Hawley, president of Reaching America and member of Project 21. Guys, thanks both of you for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Derek, welcome to the program.
I appreciate you having me. Thanks.
My pleasure. Just one day after the usual media drones praised him for his presidential speech about Afghanistan, Donald Trump held a rally in Phoenix, Arizona that was vintage Trump. And by vintage Trump, I mean full of lies, racial dog whistles, and self-indulgent whining about the media. It also included this call to shut down the government over the border wall.
Now, the obstructionist Democrats would like us not to do it, but believe me, if we have to close down our government, we're building that wall.
So just a few hours before that absolutely bonkers Phoenix rally, the New York Times published a story about how Mitch McConnell hasn't spoken to Trump in weeks and has privately expressed uncertainty that Mr. Trump will be able to salvage his administration after a series of summer crises. Obviously, the institutional Republican Party is at its wit's end with Trump. Is there a limit to the crazy for Republicans, or are they willing to accept an infinite amount of crazy to get a few tax cuts for the billionaires who own them? Charles.
Woo! Well, that's a lot to unpack. But
Sure.
What we see is a Trump who is isolating himself in the White House. And I'm somebody who doesn't believe that the White House is self-isolating, but we saw President Obama refuse to work with Congress. He refused to talk to Republicans. He refused to negotiate. And we didn't get things through Congress. It wasn't functional. And now we're seeing a repeat of it.
It was all Obama's fault, seriously?
And now we're seeing a repeat
Mitch
of it.
McConnell not even letting him have a judicial nominee on the Supreme Court?
Look, if you want to work with Congress, there's a way to work with Congress. But we've seen this with presidents from across party lines.
The Republicans refused to work with Obama.
That's what the liberals always say. President Kennedy. Look, President Kennedy.
Mitch McConnell said, my first and most important job is to make Obama a one-term president. There was a group of Republicans, 17 Republicans who got together.
That's the job of Congress. That's the
caucus room restaurant.
That's the way our founders.
Night of the inauguration.
That's the way our founders set up the Constitution, was so that the branches would have to work together. One branch couldn't run over the other. You have to learn to work with the Senate. President Kennedy wouldn't work with Congress and couldn't get his bills passed. Lyndon B. Johnson comes in, the master of the Senate comes in, is able to pass bills right away because he understands how to work with them. You need leadership, and Trump isn't showing it.
With an enormous amount of political capital that the Democrats had as a result of the assassination of Kennedy. I mean, it's a very stark way to say it, but Johnson's pitch for the Civil Rights Act was, for example, do this in the memory of Jack. Excuse me, Derek.
Well, first of all, I saw things differently last night in his speech out in Arizona. I thought he did a great job in terms of, all right, getting back on point in terms of letting the American people know what's really going on with the liberal media.
So it's all about the fight.
It's all about the fight, because at the same time, where he was attacking the media, what about the attacks that are on him on a daily basis? So I thought he did a great job in straightening out what's really, really going on, because my wife and I, the kids, we were on vacation last week, so we didn't have access to all the media that we have here, but at the same time, and so the message I received was not what he delivered last night.
Right. Well, then how do you deal with the schizophrenia? I mean, last night he gives this fire and brimstone, it's them or us, right? And in fact, he even said they, who's the they, are trying to destroy our heritage and history. And I think it's fairly clear who he was talking about. In any case, here was this polarity. Today he comes out and gives us a speech that he reads off the prompter. Today is prompter Trump. Yesterday is unprompter Trump. Today he comes out and reads a thing about we all need to love each other and there's only one America and there's only one value and we're all, it's how long can he continue doing this?
Well, as long as he can continue to pull out crowds like he had last night, I think
that room was half empty. He had 4,000 people in there.
Which station were you watching?
You can. The pictures are all over the internet. That room was half empty.
When they drew the crowd, the camera out to the crowd was full.
He had 4,000 people in a room that'll hold 19,000 people, and there was at least 15,000 people outside.
Come on, Tom. This was the biggest event. This event was
These are real numbers.
This event was huge. You just aren't paying attention. It's the biggest event.
All right. I surrender. It was the biggest crowd ever. Okay, yes. Moving along. Just around the same time as his wife went on a classist tirade on social media, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin tried to pull a fast one on the public. At an event with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, he said that while the Trump administration will close the loophole for hedge funds on carried interest, it would leave them open for other types of funds that do create jobs. This is some first-class BS from Mnuchin. Funds that create jobs, that could technically define a pretty wide range of investment firms. And this is a scam to help the banksters. I mean, right? So much for draining the swamp. We're going to take on the banksters. These guys are killers. Remember that? These guys are killers. I almost voted for him when he said that. And then what does he do? He puts Mnuchin, he's worth $700 million, $500 million bucks, a bankster in his...
I love this issue because for me, it exposes exactly the way that the left supports cronyism, right? Because these aren't billionaires that are benefiting from carried interest. These are teachers, firemen, and bureaucrats that are benefiting from carried interest because it's their retirement money that's in these funds. That is what's going on.
The funds, Charles,
Tom doesn't want
the carried
them to
interest
benefit.
is for the CEO of the fund, not for the fund itself.
No, it's for the investors, and that's how you keep cronyism away. If you want cronyism away, what do? You incentivize the people that are making the investment.
Carried interest is not for the investors. Long-term capital gains is for the investors.
No.
What the carried interest is for is paid.
The actual person that's making the decision.
For people who don't know what the hell we're talking about, let me just give what I think is a really short example. And if either of you guys, if I'm wrong, tell me. My understanding is that we have long-term capital gains and short-term capital gains. The lowest interest rate historically was long-term capital gains because we wanted to encourage people to hold stocks for a long time. Short-term capital gains if you turn something. But both of them, the theory was because this is people making money with money, it's more important than people making money with their hands or with their brain. So we tax them at a lower rate. The tax for the capital gains rate right now is 20% plus 3.8% for Obamacare, as I recall.
It's more important to get jobs.
And, well, just to finish this, where the carried interest came from is that a bunch of banksters, went to Washington, D.C., bought a bunch of politicians and said, we want to, on our paychecks, forget the investments, on our paychecks, we want to pay that low 20% interest or income tax rate rather than the 39% rate that our surgeons are paying or our dentists are paying. And so they invented this word, carried interest, which is relatively meaningless, and said, sure, okay, you guys can call it carried. And there's over a dozen people on Wall Street who made more than $1 billion last year in carried interest, and they paid 20% income tax.
That explanation is wrong from the bottom up.
What's wrong with it?
Well, the tax break is given to money because we consider creation of jobs through investment more important than hurting rich people, and that's why the tax break is there.
More important than taxing.
That's why the taxes are lower in the first place. But when we talk about carried interest,
it's a complete nonsense.
When we talk about carried interest, it's an incentive for the fund managers. So the investors are actually the teachers, firemen, and bureaucrats. The fund managers, it's an incentive so that they will pick the ones with the highest returns instead of their friends.
So some guy making $1 billion a year, $1 billion a year, and there are these people, and they're paying a 20% income tax rate, and that's going to. I'm not, Derek. You don't believe this stuff, do you?
Well, here's what I do know. I met with someone from the House Ways and Means Committee yesterday, and there have been no details released about the new tax plan. So what we're talking about are all assumptions. And even Chuck Schumer, we think, it appears there's been nothing definite or definitive about the tax plan.
Yeah.
So I think we're arguing an issue that we really don't know is going to happen.
Nah, we're going to do it. I put together a letter earlier this year that has 33 conservative groups that are opposed to raising carried interest rates. We know where this is going. The conservative movement.
So you're firmly on the side of the billionaires.
No, I'm fully on the side.
Plants his flag.
I'm fully on the side of teachers, firefighters, and bureaucraats. It's only aggravating to see you on the side of cronies. And
I don't know any.
At the same time, there have been no details released about the plan. So these are all assumptions that we're making right now.
Okay. Well, to our last topic, the National Academy of Sciences says it has been ordered by the Interior Department to suspend a multi-year study into the health risks posed by mountaintop removal coal mining. The study was requested by the governor of West Virginia because so many people working and living near mountaintop removal coal operations in West Virginia are getting sick and dying. The excuse for killing the study from the Trump administration, as always, is budgetary concerns. But given this administration's servile relationship with the fossil fuel industry, this is pretty obviously a favor to the coal barons. Has any president more cynically manipulated a region more than Donald Trump has manipulated Appalachia?
I don't agree with that. Okay,
We have
here's
a minute
why.
and a half.
Okay, all right. When I first graduated from college, I moved back home to Chesapeake, Virginia. I worked for Norfolk Southern Railroad as a brakeman out at the terminal. Our job and responsibility was to load coal ships that transported coal all around the world. So I've always asked myself the question, if our coal and natural resources are good enough for other countries, then why is it not good enough for us right here at home? In addition to that, my grandfather was a black coal miner in Clinch Cove, Virginia, in the Appalachian Mountains. So coal, fossil fuels has been a way of life for my family for a very long time. What they said was they're going to halt the study just to review the plans in terms of if they're going to fund the project any further. Once again,
The study was already funded.
It was funded, but they said they were going to pull the funding to review everything because of budget cuts and that kind of thing. They didn't say we were not going to go back.
But there's no budget cuts. There hasn't been a new budget. The budget has to be passed by October 1st or the government freezes up. But there's been no budget passed. You know, we've been operating in a deficit since March. They're moving money around. I get that, but this is just, you know, the National Academy of Sciences being shut down.
I know you want them to continue spending money, but let's say that this study comes out and says something opposite of what the left wants. We know what that means.
The left
we know what that means, right? When we had a minimum wage study that came out up in Seattle.
That was not a study.
It was rejected. No, it was a study, completely rejected. When we had an Oregon Medicaid study that came out with scientific evidence, rejected. We have Westlake Superfund site in Missouri. Evidence came out that showed it wasn't a harm to the community, rejected. The left rejects science.
There was a Yale study that said the same thing.
The left rejects science every time that it comes out and says something that they don't support. So why are we going to spend money to do something that, I mean, let's put a halt to it and just wait.
Rejects.
Over and over and over again.
I will leave you with the last word, Charles. Charles, Derek, it's great having you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Coming up, America doesn't have a pollution problem. It has an oligarchy problem. Filmmaker Lila